Now, good morning. Dr. Lew is here from the Health and Wellness Spot. Now, one of you asked me in my comment section to talk about tramadol and how tramadol is totally abused in the healthcare system nowadays. Now, tramadol is not abused only in the healthcare system. Tramadol is abused by most of the injectable drug users and even medics nowadays. And even to add on that, there's another one that is called pethidine that is totally highly abused in hospitals. But this is the reality. And I'll just shed some light on the entire group of those drugs. These drugs are what we call the narcotics. Okay, so we have a law that regulates these drugs, the narcotics and psychotropics drugs, and the law is actually called the NPS, Narcotic and Psychotropic Substances Act. So you can check that up. But that act, I think, is inactive. I think they've focused on the abusive substances like cocaine, like bang. That's what they tighten the belt on. But of course, the rest, uh, it's easy to go away with. That's why people are addicted to tramadol. So on the narcotics part, that's why we have all those tramadols. Narcotics, remember we have the narcotics and psychotropics, okay? So narcotics are basically the painkillers, the potent painkillers. We have morphine, we have the tramadols here, we have the pethidines, and all those painkillers that are used for people who have terminal diseases like cancer, okay? Or people who have burns. But I want you to know that these drugs, even if you look at the mode of action, they don't alleviate pain as such. What they do is they mask the pain and they give you a state of euphoria. So you feel high. It's a fake high. And once you feel that high, you tend to forget the pain. That's how they work. It's that simple. But the reality is, pain is a symptom, so you cannot treat pain. You have to treat what caused the pain. That's why I tell you that if you look at the mode of action, you'll think that they are going to help you alleviate the pain. But you see, if you treat pain, it means you're just masking as you let the disease establish itself. So if you have burns and you have the pain, if you treat the burns and then the pain disappears. So these drugs give somebody a fake euphoria, a feeling of high, a fake high. Let me just call it a fake high. And these are the side effects of these drugs actually. So once they alleviate the pain, you start feeling high, and now that's how you start becoming dependent on them and addicted to them. And that's why they are regulated by law because they have high chances of being abused. They have high chances of causing dependency and addiction, and therefore they have to be regulated strictly so that they don't bring all these issues that come with addiction and drug addiction. But they are being abused still. So this is the reality. Doctors abuse pethidine. Pethidine is let me call it a lesser morphine because morphine is the top one on the list of the narcotics. But most doctors abuse pethidine because it is a less morphine, okay? And most people abuse tramadol. And nowadays, they can see even tramadol being sold over the counters, the injectables being sold over the counters, the capsules being sold over the counter. Remember, the mode of action is the same, whether it's an injection or is a capsule. The only difference is the route of administration and the rate at which it starts to act. Because those that go through the veins start acting faster. So avoid those drugs unless they are prescribed and unless you're under management of something. Understand that people who are supposed to take morphine tablets who are suffering cancer and they buy them, but they become dependent on them and they become addicted to them. But keep this in mind that the major side effects of these drugs, not only even put aside the addiction part, the major side effect of these drugs is they suppress the respiratory centers. So they depress your respiratory centers in the brain. Once they suppress that respiratory center, you start having difficulty in breathing. And that's the reason why they are not supposed to be given in people who have asthma or people who have COPD and the issues with their chest, with their lungs and the respiratory tract. Because if you do that and then you suppress the respiratory centers, these people will just die. So as you use them, you might end up suffering respiratory depression that will cause you all the issues, acidosis, heart attack, and all that. So as you abuse those drugs, be aware of that issue. Okay. Also be aware that you can easily go to jail because of abusing the narcotics. They are regulated drugs, and let them stay as so. And on this drug, I've already mentioned a few of them. That is morphine. There's another one that is used to sedate even the elephants called Thebaine. We also have codeine, and codeine tablets are actually abused by campus students. You remember that cough syrup that had codeine? And most some of the cough syrups that are not supposed to be dispensed over the counter have codeine. It suppresses cough, and also it suppresses the respiratory centers. So you can imagine trying to treat cough, coming out with addiction and respiratory suppression. But again, it's temporary solution for the cough because cough is brought about by something. It's a symptom. So therefore, treat what causes the cough instead of treating the cough. Cough is a symptom. Now, those are the narcotics. Now, to the psychotropics, just from the name psychotropics, they either stimulate or depress the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. That is actually under Schedule 2. So remember, the narcotics are under Schedule 1 of the law, and then Schedule 2 is these ones that are called the psychotropics. Now, on these psychotropics is where people don't understand it clearly because we have drugs that depress the central nervous system and those that stimulate the central nervous system. So those that make you not to sleep, those are the psychotropics. Those that make you get depressed or feel sleepy, those are also psychotropics. So, for example, drugs for epilepsy, the phenobarbital, the phenytoins, all those, the carbamazepine, those are part of this, the psychotropics. So they are supposed to be regulated. They're supposed actually to be locked under a cabinet that is called the DDA. DDA, the pharmacist will understand that. But that is not for us here. Let's continue. So we also have drugs like diazepam. We also have drugs that are basically anxiolytics. They help you treat anxiety. We also have drugs that help you stimulate some appetite. Some drugs that help you stimulate appetite are under this. And those drugs that suppress you. For example, uh, a simple drug that is mostly abused, the one that I talk about all the time, that is called Mira. Mira or cat comes with something called amphetamines that stimulate. So you see, amphetamine as a pure substance is actually a drug that's going to stimulate your CNS, and that will cause you lack of sleep. Therefore, it's supposed to be regulated. Same to nicotine, that in cigarettes. But I wonder why in our country, Kenya, nicotine as a pure substance is illegal, but cigarettes are very legal. I don't understand. Yet the cigarettes carry nicotine. So the effects are just the same. So I wonder why that is skeptical. But on this group, allow me to mention the drug that is called Rohypnol. Rohypnol is what Kenyans call it as Mchele. And Rohypnol is actually a trade name. So the generic name for this drug is flunitrazepam. Okay, so it's under the benzodiazepines. It's actually in the same group as diazepam. But this one acts faster, and again, it's very soluble in water and in alcohol. So this is the reason why ladies abuse it. So they carry it and it looks like exactly like a grain of rice. That's why it's called mchele. So it's put in your drink as a man, and then when you're taking that beer, it dissolves very fast and clears up. Diazepam cannot dissolve that fast. That's why they don't. It's not even soluble. That's why they don't use it. But they prefer using this mchele or the rohypnol because it is very soluble and it doesn't. You will not notice. So when you drink that, a beer or that alcohol that has that mchele, what happens is it will suppress your CNS. So one, you feel drowsy or sleepy, and then sometimes it's called the truth drug. So you say everything as it is. So if you asked for the pin, you give out the pin. That's how men get their issues starting. This is how your phones were stolen. This is how your ATMs are drained. Because ladies will put this in your drink, and once you drink it, you feel sleepy and drowsy. And now you start telling the truth, just speaking your truth, and you give out your pin, and that's how it happens. And again, remember, it suppresses the CNS, right? And also alcohol suppresses the CNS. So these two drugs act synergistically. So they help each other achieve their action. So as alcohol is suppressing your CNS, Rohypnol comes in to suppress it even more. And that's how you find it hard to recover from this issue. So I wanted to note that. So Mchele is actually a psychotropic drug. It's actually supposed, and actually it was banned. But when you walk in the streets of Isli in Nairobi, you will find it with a lot of ease. So I want you to understand that those drugs that sometimes you abuse and they cause you dependence, uh, and I was so surprised that even diazepam is sold over the counter. Somebody comes and buys a whole pack that has 100 tablets of diazepam, And this is happening mostly in the northern region where people abuse a lot of Mira in Meru, in Wajir, in Marsabit, in Isiolo, in Mandera. So they buy it over the counter. And if you don't sell it to them, of course, somebody else is willing to sell it to them. They buy a whole pack because after an episode of chewing Mira, they have difficulty in sleeping. And now they have to use diazepam to sleep and they become addicted to it. So let's stop raising zombies. Let's be very cautious. Drugs come with side effects. And let's not force our bodies to react in the way that we want. If it's time to sleep, sleep. Don't skip the biological cycle so that you get to induce again another biological cycle using a drug. You're messing up your system totally. And these are drugs that are regulated by law. I understand that, of course, our regulatory bodies sometimes they don't even they can't do all this. They can't get to all of you to help you lead a healthy life and regulate these drugs. Because nowadays, every apartment has a pharmacy on the ground floor. So it's difficult for these pharmacies to be regulated because some of them are out there for business. So they'll just sell these drugs to you. These are drugs that are supposed to be prescription only medicine. Okay, and they are supposed to actually be taken under strict supervision by somebody who is a professional. So please, don't abuse drugs, don't misuse drugs. Lead a healthy life. You deserve a healthy life. You deserve a long life. Don't be a zombie. Don't let drugs make you a zombie. Don't be a slave to the industries, to the pharmaceutical industries. I thought you should know that.